It's 3 p.m. We're ready to begin our webinar titled How to Improve Your Work-Life Money Balance. Before I introduce our guest expert, let me say this webinar is a presentation of the Community Economic Development Fund in Meriden, Connecticut. I'm Frederick Welk, a business advisor for CEDF clients. The Community Economic Development Fund is a nonprofit organization which provides enterprises in Connecticut with term loans, lines of credit, and commercial mortgages when they can't get traditional bank financing. We welcome our webinar participants, who include CEDF clients, and the business owners from across Connecticut and advisors from Yukon Small Business Development Center. For practicality and to improve the program quality, we're muting the lines of everyone tuned in. If you develop questions, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, and we'll get to as many questions as the hour permits. This presentation is being recorded, and CEDF will make the program available on our website in the coming days, cedf.com/recorded presentations. If you think your schedule is overwhelming you, or you feel drained by your work and outside obligations, or if the stress is impacting your relationships and your enjoyment of your business, well, maybe thinking through the interaction between these key elements of life will help you maintain sufficient energy to tackle all of your challenges and remain focused and committed. Our guest is going to outline what she identifies as the 7 strategies and 3 essential habits to get you on track. Jenny DeRosa Bergeron is the founding member of Athena Wealth Management. Jenny specializes in pre- and post-retirement planning, education planning, employee retirement plans, and insurance strategies. After graduating Phi Beta Kappa with her bachelor's degree from Trinity College, Jenny obtained her Series 7 and 66 securities licenses, plus her health, accident, and long-term care insurance licenses. Jenny has won more than 10 awards in her 18 years of industry experience. Jenny, we very much appreciate you making time to be with us today.
Thank you, Fred, and you have a great radio voice. And welcome to all of the participants on the webinar. So now you own a business, and I bet you are struggling with balancing responsibilities. One of the things that came to mind when Fred and I were talking about a program that could really help his constituents and the general public out there is I thought about the variety of people that I work with, and whether they're individuals or business owners. And I do work with quite a few business owners. Many are, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs. It really comes down to the fact that they do struggle with balancing their personal financial awareness with their business financial awareness, because in many cases, the two are not mutually exclusive. They want to feel that they have things under control. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be on top of it all the time. But again, it's hard to separate the two. What I've found is that if we can look at some simple ways to develop what I call a living financial plan and work off of some fundamentals that you can apply to your personal life, you can usually apply those to your business life as well. And it takes stress off to focus on your business a little bit more. Because financial planning in general is not just about investments or the future. It's about spending less and saving more and being disciplined, sometimes sacrificing today for tomorrow, which doesn't sound too fun, but we all have goals. I think we understand that as entrepreneurs. A living financial plan is about conscious choices, seeing realities and possibilities for change, trade-offs, sorting out and prioritizing what's important to you. It's a way to periodically check in with yourself and realize that this is always a moving cycle as your goals change throughout the years and sometimes months. The process of creating, or at least being aware, is really part of that living financial plan. And that's important for anyone, especially business owners, because in our constant struggle to strive and our drive, we often lose awareness of our why. And we wouldn't have a business, whether it be great or small, without that why. So, people often talk about work-life balance and they forget the money part, but it's essential. It's really the literal and the figurative currency of our life. So we want to make sure we take that into account. So hopefully this will help you take the dreamy parts of your life, your goals, and marry that with the fundamentals of money and help you make choices to enjoy both your now and your future. So when we think about an ideal situation, we want to feel more energized than spent. You'll know you've achieved a healthy balance between work, life, and money when you have energy for all parts of your life. So while the unemployment rate may be falling, stress levels continue to rise among workers. And this is feeding entrepreneurial feelings and what we call the gig economy. So when we look at a recent statistics from Randstad's USA about stress in the workplace, a little less than half, in fact, 46% of surveyed workers are considering switching over to the gig economy in 2019 and probably more in 2020. So once you make the switch, what does it feel like to have that healthy balance between work life and money? You may be nowhere near it, or you may have made some strides this year, but if you take a moment to imagine what that feels like, not just look like, that's actually the beginning of creation. And I know that sounds a little bit like, The Secret and, Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, but there are some really nice truths to that whole process. So, we get so mired in our doing as business owners that we forget to create through our thought and that process that actually brings joy. You can think about that as practical daydreaming. Where we stumble is we get snagged in, oh, I don't have the time for that, or I don't have the money or the expertise. And one of the reasons why that happens is because we live in a society that is constantly being pushed forward. And part of that is through technology. I mean, thank goodness for technology today, right? But our world is constantly accelerating. Our commitments are increasing. And we do need more money to fund our lifestyles. So if you, look at a recent Price Waterhouse Financial Wellness Survey, 59% of the working population find dealing with their financial situation stressful. So let's break this down a little bit. When we think about work, life, and money, you'll notice work is certainly is its own category. And it really needs to be more than a paycheck. Most people associate work with being an employee and working for someone else, but I think you'll agree with me that when you have your own business, you are, certainly chief cook and bottle washer. It's probably an understatement to remind you that you're working. A key part to creating balance is to keep reminding of yourself that it is more than a paycheck. And there are a lot of things that are positive that you can get out of your work that's not just profit. You want to make sure that you feel connected to some deep personal rewards that come from the routine of working. So for many, work provides what psychologists call a flow experience. It's a feeling of vitality and connectedness. So two big contributors to happiness. This flow experience has 4 elements that are common in the workplace: routine, socializing, challenge, right? And things that you can measure, the ability to measure your achievements. So routine, following a regular schedule, that can really partially be creating good habits. But if you can really break down, whether it be at home or at work, and have a good process, standard operating procedure for everything that you do, then you actually free up time to better handle stress when it comes along the way. We know there are times when things don't follow the stated process, but it's like an action plan and a timetable that you can always go back to. And that actually will help you partly with this flow experience. The other thing is social. I know I do like to work, in my office, analyzing things, studying things, but where would we be if we didn't have other people that we were being connected with, right? So the thing to remember about our social part of the flow experience is that it's important not only to be related to, whether it's in your work or outside of your work through professional partners, with people that are like you, because it can validate what you know and where you want to go, but also people that offer differing opinions. And while that may be an annoyance in the beginning, you're really going to grow and you're going to learn through that. So, take a deep breath, count to 10, and embrace those relationships. Challenges, you've often heard that if you're not moving forward, you're moving back, and that's true. Every time you feel you're being challenged, again, it can be uncomfortable, but you want to remember that this is how you grow. This is how you get to the next step, as uncomfortable as it may be in the moment. And then also measurable. So we often measure our progress when we're business owners that we label as achievement or success in terms of money or being profitable. And that's fine, because in the beginning, especially, you have to pay the bills. But take the time, because this really does filter into this positive flow experience, to measure your emotional successes. So how did it feel to reach a measurable achievement in maybe helping your client get where they needed to go, or just making their day better? So you may know that you already have some of these elements, but if not, it's often just a revisiting of these 4 parts of the flow experience to change your perspective and make some small tweaks. And whether you call it your calling, mission, or business, work takes up a major portion of our day and what we do. So you might as well find a way to enjoy it. So, which comes first, success or happiness? We usually hear, or we've been socialized to believe, that you work hard and then you will have success and happiness will follow. Well, really, that model is broken. With each victory, our goalpost for success just keeps getting pushed farther and farther out. It's like being on a treadmill of happiness. We're always on it and we push harder, and sometimes we never really get there. For more than 10 years, there's been groundbreaking research that proves that happiness is the precursor to success. It's not the other way around. In fact, happiness and optimism, so you can think about that daydreaming of joy and what your why is and what's important to you, it fuels performance and achievement. This discovery has been confirmed when you look at the stats by more than 200 scientific studies and research on 275,000 people worldwide, including dozens of Fortune 500 companies. So, try it sometime. Whether it means that you do a journal or you meditate or you pray on it, or whatever works for you, just think about how you define happiness. And they don't have to be material things either. So when we look at some life personal strategies, some of these tips will help you make room to find and or acknowledge your happiness and your success, because they can be very simple but constantly overlooked. So the first one, build downtime in your schedule. And I know that we can say, oh, I don't have any time for downtime, but it's very important to schedule this. And there's a Trinity alum, Trinity is my alma mater, as Fred mentioned, that wrote a book, How to Become CEO. It's Jeff Fox, and he used to have a business in Avon. And one of the things he talked about was actually scheduling a day for downtime. That's very important. And if you have to schedule it, do it. This is when some of your best ideas come to you. I can't tell you the number of times where I've just taken pause and been in my car before a meeting or before I went into the grocery store, and some of my best ideas came to me at that time for work. For you, it could be mowing the lawn, it could be reading, it could be chopping wood. Drop activities that drain you. Now, I kind of smile as I say this because this can be difficult when it comes to relationships, both family and otherwise, because we want to make people happy. But, think about it just in your business life. If you think about networking or boards that you're on, after you give it the old college try, if you're finding that it's not working either from an ROI perspective, or you're really not excited about going anymore, drop it. It's okay to do that. Maybe you then refine your marketing strategy and you join a different group, which is an activity that doesn't drain you. Rethink your errands. This sounds simple, but anything that takes time away from you that you can delegate to someone else, whether it be in a business or personal capacity, that could be paying bills online, that could be hiring a personal assistant. That is very important. Automate good money habits. We'll talk about that. Then they'll become second nature. Get moving. You hear about this all the time. Exercise. It can be 10 minutes 3 times a week. I think many people try the latest craze, or they think they have to join a gym. We know that exercise produces endorphins. It clears the mind. It's extremely important, but don't think that you have to go full bore or 100% for it to really matter and make a difference. A little relaxation goes a long way. I know I'm really bad at this, but this ties in with number 1, but it really does go a long way. And I think sometimes you have to learn to say no. And then, of course, reducing stress. Now, this reducing stress is tied in with get moving, but it doesn't have to be something that's physically active. Schedule more things that are important to you. So It could be reading more, it could be going to museums, but that will reduce stress, which will give you the mental, emotional, and physical space within which to either work more or, attack what could be challenges or things that are proactive, that are positive for you to achieve in your life. So these are just some real life examples. Of course, the names have been changed from some people that I work with. The husband opened up a business, the wife works in a high powered job, and they were really struggling with, marrying the two. So there were some simple things that they did. One thing was they delegated some responsibilities in their home life, hired a cleaning lady, hired someone to take care of the lawn, decided that they weren't going to travel for holidays that they used to do. In their case, they actually moved closer to where their husband opened up his business. Better defined their target markets, as I mentioned before, and he got involved in only business activities that really made sense for him. They committed to a date night. They committed to each of them partaking in their favorite hobby. For her, it was a book club, and for him, I believe it was playing cards with the guys. And also, one of the things that they weren't doing was they weren't keeping a record of their household expenses. And when they started to do that in the same fashion that he was doing with his business, it gave them a better attunement with their expenses and their income at home, which took a lot of stress off of him when he was trying to do that for his business. So some simple but very easy tips, real life examples for you. So the reality is, when the money part is smooth, life feels good, right? And when the money part is off, everything feels off. So that's, one of the reasons why you want to take some simple steps to develop great money habits. So it's really starts out as nothing more than awareness. You may start to develop these habits because you're looking at things, and we will share some documents with you via email shortly after this webinar, if not today, tomorrow, that will help you calculate your financial well-being, will help you review your expenses, your net flow, things, your net worth, things like that. So you may do this and then say, oh, look at the work that I have to do. But the first step, which is going to take a lot of stress off of you, is just being aware. So this is really where we start to develop the living financial plan that's unique to you. So, and just remember, there's going to be a question and answer period at the end. So compile your questions as I go along through these slides, because every question is a good one. And this is an area where questions typically arise. So you really want to rise above the financial noise and chaos that's out there. We're in the Google era. There's a radio show, a talk show for everyone, but those things may not really apply to you. So for folks that have a partner handling maybe the home financial aspect or the investment aspect of things, it's not that you have to become an expert in that, like your partner may be, or you have to start managing all that, but you really want to know enough so that you, A, have peace of mind that you know, or B, that you know enough or can ask intelligent questions when you need to fix things. Of course, you can work with outside experts too, but this is really to help you in your personal work. So when you calculate your financial well-being score, it's going to be a self-assessment of where you are in 6 key areas that make up your living financial plan. And if you're not where you think you need to be, or you don't know enough about that, that's okay. This is a start. And regularly reviewing your personal finances using the tools that we'll provide via email. One is an expense worksheet, which I really love to use with my clients because it includes many categories that we forget about, and it's areas where our money just evaporates, like gifts and eating out and things like that. And it's not a judgment document at all. And it's not a document that's going to mandate that you have to stick to a budget. But if you don't know how to either rejoice in what you're doing right or fix things that you can fix before it's too late, right? And the second is your net worth statement, which tracks what you own and what you owe. And I'll probably repeat this, but be aware that really up through midlife, most people are in a negative because they're paying off so many things. And that's okay. We need to give ourselves a little credit for the work that we're doing. And keeping your big goals in sight and on track, this really connects in with your why and your happiness factor. And that's super important, because if you don't have that, you're not going to be fulfilled at the end of the day, no matter how much you earn or how successful you are at your business. So habit number one, your financial well-being score. There's 6 key areas. So your personal finances, and you can also, sub in your business finances here. Cash flow is certainly your money in and out of your life. And this includes your net worth, again, what you own and what you owe. And one thing that I constantly see with both business owners and individuals is people stress out about paying off all their debt right away. Well, realize you have good debt and you have bad debt. Good debt improves your credit score as long as you're paying properly. It's meant to be paid throughout your life, like a mortgage, even car payments, student loans, etc. Bad debt we typically refer to as credit cards. Well, sometimes you need a credit card as a bridge. So there's ways to pay those down that I won't get into here, but realize people should really stop, getting down on themselves, because sometimes you need a bridge. So goals, and the goals that I'm talking about here, certainly they can be big goals, but they can also be very small goals, and they don't have to be material. So one of your goals could be what goes into the next part of the pie, which is wellness. It could be that you want to eat less sweets, that you want to walk more. It could be that you want to redo a part of your home. It could be that you want to be able to hire 5 more people because you want to grow into another market. But what I encourage people to do with goals is really get touchy-feely about it. So this part, really think about what makes you happy and what makes you feel joy. Try to find the emotion and that adjective in it when you're creating your goals. Because as you go toward that goal, the how and the money part will tend to come in line because you're focused passionately on your goal. So retirement, look, it's a reality, right? It's a lot of what I do. And when you're just starting a business or you're in the beginning stages, you think, oh my goodness, I'm just trying to pay payroll or, pay my rent. But it is a reality that's going to come up. So you do want to make sure that you're aware of what your lifestyle is, because trust me, it doesn't often change as you retire, and what you're going to need to fuel that lifestyle. Many people think they're going to downsize to a large degree, but there are many expenses, of course, that are subject to inflation, like property taxes, cars, groceries, etc., that aren't going to go away, even if you downsize your home. And healthcare costs are a reality, and people are living longer. So you do want to make sure that this is part of your well-being score, and that you're focusing on that. And then family, of course, the ability to create a loving, supportive family life, meeting your obligations and responsibilities. Well, sometimes that could be insurance, wealth transfer aspects. Maybe you have a special needs child. Maybe your family is your pets, and you want to make sure that they're taken care of in the way that you want. And this is while you're living and after you're gone. And then lastly, security. Feeling safe is an important aspect of the human condition. So if you think about this from a financial perspective, that is tied up with some retirement and protection planning. You want to feel safe about not only where you are, but where you're going. But when you think about a business, it's sometimes never too early to think about, an exit plan, right? So if what I see a lot of my business owners do is they don't really take stock in the fact that they're pulling in the majority of the income for their family. So you may want to look at things that can provide security, like insurances to provide that income, long-term disability insurance if you can no longer work to create an income, things like that. So, I think people think if you want to be secure, that's a sign of weakness, but it's not. It's a reality. So allow yourself to realize that that's a reality. So again, you're going to be getting this well-being assessment, but here's an example, a partial example. So, do you know your income sources and expenses well? 1 being no to 5 being yes at the high end of the spectrum. So if you use this for both your personal and your business, I think you will find that you may be surprised that you might be answering one or twos on some of these, right? So especially the assets that you own and how well they're growing. Again, you don't have to be an expert, but if you can at least know top line some of the answers to these, it's going to give you that feeling of being in the know, and you're going to feel less overwhelmed as you move throughout your business life. Okay. And then some of those big goals, can you savor life now, just not in the future? Well, that's an important one, because if you're answering one there, then you've got some work to do. And if you don't do the work there, starting to enjoy life now and making some changes to do that, it's going to be hard for you to be effective in your business life. So when we look at habit number 2, reviewing your personal finances, again, these are the documents that you're going to be getting. And, I'm not going to go over them here because you're going to be getting them. And I did also review them. But trust me, this will carry over from personal to business and business to personal, because what I often find is that the way someone manages their cash flow in their personal life does extend over to business and vice versa. So the net worth sheet you're going to see over on the right, the cash flow sheet, it's going to look different when you get it. It's going to be an expense sheet. And you can have a bookkeeper or, a really good tax professional that you're working with, or like my clients, planning and advising, I work with them, but you still should have good information that you're compiling, not only so these professionals don't have garbage in, garbage out, but so that you also feel comfortable in your working and living life, that you do have a handle on what you've got. So, habit number 3, and this one does take a lot of thought. And for some entrepreneurs, actually, I find that before they get into business, sometimes this is what has propelled them to get into business. And it's the awareness of the important things in life that you really want to do and experience. So, we might not always be able to be happy or have fun or find yourself. You might say, I don't have time for that. But if you neglect that all the time, you will, fail in one form or another. And again, I can't stress enough, find whatever thing that works for you that allows you to find what's important to you. Maybe it's making sure that your parents are taken care of and that your grandkids are always close to you. Maybe it's making sure that you're able to travel, that you're able to travel now and not just in retirement, because of people that retire and they get sick, or something happens in their life and they can't do it then. Making sure that that you're always feeding, whether it be spiritual or something other that you'd like to call it, so that way you always feel successful in what you're doing now. So, money is for life. Life isn't for the money. And I can't stress this enough, because when my clients come to me, they really come to talk about life. That's actually on my website. They really don't come to talk about money. It's really just a tool. So this is something I'd like you to, keep in mind. So designing your living financial plan is about the choices you make. It's about identifying your life goals, both financial and experiential. The tools to organize and be aware of your finances will help you see what you have to do to get there. And the organization is the first step. And again, if you need professional help, that's fine. But realize that figuring out what you want and organizing everything will help you realize what your choices are, where you have to make changes, and where you have the freedom to move forward. As you do this, don't feel overwhelmed, because, through knowing, there is a sense of control. You might not like what you have to control, but you can't make changes if you keep your eyes closed. But you have to realize that in your business and personal life, of that alignment with your why, which again are those big goals now and for the future. So, those are just some basic things that I go over with my clients, both personally and professionally, to help them start the process of tying in what's important to them spiritually, financially, mentally, emotionally, and then taking stock in where they are, what they have, income and expenses, and then they can start to define where they need to go to feed their current and future lifestyle, whether they have to take steps to work with a professional or to find some protective measures like insurance and, really have a plan for moving forward. So I know we went through a lot quickly, but if we have any questions, Fred, we can take them.
Well, we'll remind our participants to use the Q&A button down at the bottom of their screen, and they can type their questions, and Jenny will respond here. I'll ask you a question
Sure.
here in the interval here while we give people a chance to see if they have anything that's on their mind and type out those questions. Jenny, you work with both business owners and people that are employed in W-2 type jobs,
That's
I would
right.
think, in your practice. Do you see a significant difference in the way that business owners approach money versus people who are employed and, don't necessarily have an eye on a profit and loss and a balance sheet in their own workday?
I do. So my business owners tend to have more appetite for risk, just in general. Probably no surprise. So not just from an investment perspective, but just the risks that they're going to take. They feel, especially the ones that are just starting out, that they're going to, and I'll just take retirement and education planning, for example, because those are two big things that I deal with. They say, you know what, I might not be able to max out my 401k right now, or my self-directed IRA, or my simple IRA, whatever they have for their business, but I'm going to put a little bit in because I know that eventually I'm going to get there. So they sometimes have a little bit more faith in the process, and I think that's because they've had to have a measure of faith to start a business. So that's the big difference that I see.
What about the, I guess, shall we call it the seriousness or well, I don't want to say that those who are not business owners wouldn't necessarily have a frivolous attitude toward money, but do you notice any difference between the, I guess, the attitudes toward money with someone who, well, let's say has to count the cash drawer every day versus
Right.
someone who is employed in an occupation where they don't necessarily deal with the company's finances?
Well, it can actually go both ways, but it's interesting because if you have a business owner, again, that might have small profit margins or has had a setback or is starting out, so cash flow tends to be tighter, right, in those situations. One of the things that I find is in those cases, it can actually go in the reverse where they get kind of locked down. And one of the things that I see is they're so busy putting their money into the business that they forget to plan for themselves as a person. So another thing comes to mind where, they forget that they're going to have to retire at some point, and they may not be able to sell their business or their book of business, and that will be their retirement. There's not always a buyer. So that's a big thing that I try to remind them of, that that's not always the best plan for retirement. In fact, I'll be honest with you, I typically see that blow up. So that's really something that I would caution against. The other thing that I see, which I thought of after you asked the first question, is the business owners may have everything wrapped up on the business side, right? But then they forget to take the time to wrap things up more so on an insurance side for their families, because they're going so fast. I say I have to have bungee cords to bungee these people down to sit and think about what they need to do, again, to plan against their ability to not work, right? To not have income, to maybe look at insurance to cover a key person that might leave or pass away, and exit planning, right? Having some sort of exit strategy when they want to exit that business. So hopefully that answers your question.
It certainly does. And I think it's because you did such a comprehensive job on the presentation that we haven't developed any questions from our participants. So I'll just say that we very much appreciate your time today to school our small business owners on addressing these worries about balancing work and life and money. Now, if they develop more questions later in the future, what's the best way to contact you?
So certainly they can call 860-430-2637. But as we tend to always go to our iPhones first, you can certainly go to my website, Athene Wealth Management. So it's like Athena, it's just the masculine version with an E at the end. So ATHENE wealth.com.
Well, I must have mispronounced that at the
That's
beginning
okay.
because it looked a whole lot like the other version to
Right,
me.
that's okay.
But clever twist on the myth, I think.
Right.
Well, once again, Jenny, thanks so much for being a participant today with us, and a great view of what we should be thinking about regarding money and work and balancing our lives. As a reminder, this webinar is a presentation of the Community Economic Development Fund in Meriden, Connecticut. For the 7th year in a row, we're Connecticut's top SBA microlender. We make business term loans at very nominal interest rates, as small as a few $1,000s, and larger business loans too, from a pool of loan capital provided by many of the state's leading banks. There are geographic and/or income qualification requirements for the borrowers. You can find out more about all of this at cedf.com. We've recorded this presentation and we're going to make it available in the coming days. Look under the Education tab at cedf.com. That's cedf.com, recorded presentations. I'm Frederick Welk. Thanks for tuning in today.